India is home to over half of the world's GCCs, or Global Capability Centers. And what began as largely a cost-saving model for back-end operations and IT support in the 1990s has now matured into a strategic, innovation-driven ecosystem and growth engine. But the evolution of the GCC seems far from over. So amidst all the technology disruption, talent shifts, and global complexity that now surrounds us, what does the next avatar of GCCs look like? Well, fortunately, we're joined by a highly distinguished panel of domain experts to tackle that very topic. Please allow me to introduce our guests. We have with us Ruchika Panesar, Chief Digital and Information Officer, Group COO and Country Head, NatWest Group India, an enterprise that's leading transformation from a financial services lens. Sangeeta Gupta, Senior Vice President of NASSCOM, an industry body that's become the voice of India's tech ecosystem. And Payal Agarwal, the head of GCC Financial Services HCL Tech, a global technology company. With that, I welcome you to our special feature, The Future of GCCs, Innovation, Talent, Transformation, a joint initiative by ET Edge, HCL Tech, and NASSCOM. Sangeeta, Ruchika, Payal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having us.
And Payal, if I could kick off the conversation with you. If we were to do a bit of a deep dive on BFSI GCCs in particular, how do you believe they've evolved in terms of role, in terms of business impact?
We've seen GCCs become a priority across industries, and we feel BFSI is at the center of this surge. I read a report saying that there are about 1,800 GCCs currently in India, slated to go up till 2,400, employing about 2 million people and slated to double the workforce by 2030, right? So, and 20% of that workforce is from BFSI. So it's no small number, and as HCL Tech, we've been used to working with GCCs since about 20 years. It started with our acquisition of Deutsche Software Limited in early 2000s, and a lot of our financial services leadership is still from DSL. But what we've seen is that the engagement models have definitely matured. What started being as cost arbitrage delivery centers is now turning into P&L ownerships, and also driving innovation transformation, which is linked to the business objectives of the enterprise. For me personally, I was with HCL Tech in the US for about 14 years, and I was asked to move back 5 years back just to drive the GCC program for the financial services. And we work across, right, whether it is the build, operate, transfer, the initial setup modes, scale to execution, and now we are focusing a lot on transformation.
Ruchika, yes, very curious to understand if you share that same sentiment, and perhaps you could walk us through some of the most major inflection points in the evolution of your own GCC.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that we are in a pivot to value for the enterprise. When you think about our journey, as Payal, you said, 20 years ago, a lot of GCCs were being established organically for really cost arbitrage, etc. reasons. Of course, the conversation's a very different one at this point. Yeah, our vision is to power NatWest to win with customers. Our 5-year strategic imperatives are really focused on turning a delivery hub to becoming a powerhouse of innovation and capabilities, and really anchor on driving business OKRs and strategic outcomes for NatWest.
So that modern day mandate has really changed.
Absolutely. NatWest India is a long-term strategic asset for NatWest, and that's what we're building. It's about building skills and future capabilities in customer experience, in data, in AI, and really simplifying the bank at the core. That's what we're doing.
Well, Sangeeta, I think your fellow panelists are absolutely right. And it's just the pace of transformation has been completely dramatic. When you look at GCCs, 20, 30 years ago, they were largely relegated to strictly a back office function, right? IT support. And today they are so critical to corporate decision making, right? From a macroeconomic level and a microeconomic level, perhaps, what are some of the forces that are influencing and shaping that narrative?
I think to build on what Payal and Ruchika have said, right? The technology industry itself is in midst of a transformation. It used to be largely technology cycles were 8-10 years long. Today it's probably 8-15 days long, right, with the pace of AI shifts that we are seeing. So one, I think there is a very, very rapid transformation that's taking place in the technology world. Every enterprise is really looking at saying, how do I stay ahead in this transformation, because you don't want to be a latecomer to all the changes that are coming out. The GCCs for these companies, the global enterprises, actually provide that platform where they have access to talent, they have access to domain capability, they have access to the best provider ecosystem in India, so they don't have to do everything themselves. They can partner with companies like HCL Tech. They have the right government support that is available. Plus, the parent is saying, if I can scale something, get true value, I can do it out of India. So I think that's the shift that we are seeing. I mean, GCCs, like you said, have been around for 4 decades. It's not a new phenomena. But the last few years, the growth is something we've never seen in the past. And this growth is not just about headcount and cost arbitrage. If you can use that word, it's about technology arbitrage today.
Well, since you brought up artificial intelligence and generative AI as well, I'll come to you with my next question, Ruchika, because while they've become buzzwords of sorts, I think the business case behind how these technologies are shaping outcomes is perhaps misunderstood in many scenarios. Could you walk us through some everyday examples at NatWest as to how you've leveraged these technologies?
Absolutely. At NatWest, AI and Gen AI is not about just experimentation. It's about really elevating business outcomes and enterprise outcomes for us, right? Even in India, our engineers and our colleagues at large have built over 100 AI and Gen AI use cases.
Phenomenal.
That are at scale, right? Whether it's in fraud detection or it is in, building the best customer experiences forward. As an example, we have a platform called Cora Plus that actually does a lot of the customer engagement. For us, 6.7 million customer conversations have happened through it, even in the first half of this year, and 50% of them have been handled independently by Cora Plus, right? In addition, I think we're, UK's only bank that has announced a partnership with OpenAI, and we've actually even invested in hiring a chief AI research officer very recently. We've rolled out Microsoft Copilot to all our 74,000 colleagues across the bank, right? So we're really enabling our people to get on this journey and making sure that they're AI powered, AI enabled in the future, and are driving use cases in a day-to-day manner. To drive business outcomes at scale and not just experimentation.
Those anecdotes are very heartening to hear. And the second part of this puzzle is, of course, talent development plans. And I'll pose a question to the both of you, to Sangeeta as well as to Payal. And Payal, perhaps we could kick off with you. Do you believe, honestly, that talent development plans in this country have kept pace with tech transformation? And perhaps you could walk us through some of the skilling initiatives that are aimed at continuous learning that you consider to be particularly effective.
That's a very valid point, right? And with such a massive change in technology, keeping the skills up to date and having a massive workforce trained, I think is a big challenge. And I also think there is a huge amount of nation building and skill building to it. The PM's office recently launched the PM internship scheme, where they are aiming to train about 1 crore, right, young individuals from the age of 21 to 24 on these new age technologies. So HCL Technology has an EdTech division, where we are partnering with GCCs like yourself to plan how we can train this workforce. About 6 months we train them in the classrooms. In another 6 months we partner with GCCs to give them OJTs. That's a big, big initiative, right? We've also tied up with Pearson just about recently to have AI-powered trainings to close the skill gaps. And as a firm, there is a lot of effort that's going into training each of us into these technologies, so that when we are customer facing, we actually understand and we speak and we dive into the details of the projects. So I think there is a massive effort going on across, and I hope it'll yield some results.
Well, Sangeeta, I think you're particularly well positioned to answer this. The effort is, of course, massive. Is it massive enough?
It isn't, if I can add to what Pooja has said, right? For a country like India with its very young demographics, the fact that we are going to have almost 100 billion people in the workforce by 2030, right? That's the scale that we are talking about. We need to be much more agile on how we are thinking about the AI transformation of our talent, of our youth. So the approach NASSCOM's taking with the government is really think of it as a pyramid approach, right? You have obviously the large base of saying, how do I do AI literacy for the masses? Just like India did digital literacy for the masses, right? I need to do AI literacy for the masses as a country. How do I build the middle, which is really saying people who will work with AI tools, right? How do I, as a professional who may not be a techie, I don't need to code, but I need to know how do I effectively use AI in everything that I do. And the top is really the few, which is saying, I need the best AI data scientists in this country, I need the AI researchers in this country who will build this next generation of AI. So it's not about what we may have thought about the AI transformation, is not about what we did with the digital transformation era. This is much more fundamental and requires this shift across every sphere. So the government recently launched the School AI Readiness Program, they're calling it SOAR, where they're saying we will do 15 hours of compulsory training for students between class 5 and 12, including a teacher training program. So we need massive impact of programs like these, and these have to be vernacular, they don't have to be all English speaking, because AI offers you that opportunity to do stuff even in your local languages. So clearly we are doing a few things, but it's not enough unless we do it at India scale, right, in some ways.
At the most grassroots of levels.
Yes.
Right.
If and I can come in on
please,
that,
Richard.
if you don't mind. I do think that within our organizations, it is absolutely about skill development. It is, though, also about talent, it's about roles, and it's about culture. I think you have to think about it in all of those three ways. And from a talent perspective and upskilling perspective, of course, Payal and Sangeeta have, alluded very beautifully what is required, right? The grassroots level of skilling and upskilling. At NatWest, we have, something called NatWest Academy, which is very focused on building that AI, data, readiness, and all of the future fit skills that are required. So we're doing that. At the same time, the roles and the types of opportunities that you have in the country have to also bring that to life and make sure that there are opportunities for those data scientists. There are opportunities to build innovation using AI across every type of role that you're hiring to drive real business impact. Because when you put the two of them together, that's when you start to build that flywheel of that culture that you require, that's going to help with that nation building sort of talent transformation at scale.
Yeah.
Which is what we need, right?
Yeah.
So don't do AI for AI's sake is what Ruchika is really saying, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It has to be inlined and perfectly aligned with actionable business outcomes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well then, Ruchika, I've got a follow-up question for you there. All right? Because when we look at GCCs today, the fact of the matter is that they are scaling, they are diversifying, and everything is becoming all the more complex, from governance to integration with headquarters, right? And change management, one example of which you've just beautifully highlighted a moment ago, seems to be the need of the hour, right? So that's it. How do you go about navigating that journey at NatWest? Any words of advice?
Well, I think, our fundamental way of doing this has been to be globally integrated and locally inspired, right? So in everything we do, making sure that change management actually starts with alignment on objectives and key results in the first place, right? Making sure that the rules that we have in the country are enterprise rules, and they are tagged back to fulfilling a strategic, imperative or a company-wide OKR that they are accountable to, and that is aligned upfront, even as we're, going to the market, bringing in talent, opening roles, etc.
From the onset.
And I think absolutely. And I think that really helps us to have that alignment from the get-go, and making sure that, it's stitched together, as I said, globally integrated and locally inspired.
Right.
I'd also say that, there's also something to be said about how you communicate and how you keep the lines of communication open, really sort of at the table, right? You want to make sure that you're building leadership in the country that has that seat at the table, the voice at the table. So there is that two-way communication that actually helps build credibility, helps build trust, and therefore you can then lead with impact and drive more business impact for the enterprise. So it starts from there.
And speaking of starting points, and I'll come to you now, Payal, for organizations out there that are looking to either build their GCC presence or transform their existing GCC, how can and must they partner with tech organizations like yours, for example, to help that mission materialize? Walk us through it step by step.
Firstly, I have to say what Ruchika said in the past question. She put it really, really beautifully, right? And it's like, while we have a nomenclature as GCCs, but when we speak to GCCs, right, they tell us like we are NatWest India, right? Right? So it's just another office in another geography.
An extension
but they're
of
still,
headquarters.
And a lot of the GCCs that we are working with currently, or if we are setting them up, right, they're saying we want to have the same culture, same look and feel, and like you say, the communication, right? The enterprise pride CIOs come here, talk to the people, talk to the mission, talk to the objectives. So it's not a center working in isolation. So to what Ruchika said, I think it's just brilliantly put. And I feel, and we as a firm feel, right, that the tech companies and the GCCs have a very symbiotic relationship. We have to coexist. There is not either or. Right? We've been doing work with the enterprises statewide for multiple years, doing the design, delivery, transformation, and that's the same level of engagement that we are having here with the GCCs. It's no different from us. What's different is in India, we do have a big brand. Right? We have about 220,000 people employed. So we have access to the governments, we have access to the universities, right? We can go and do joint courses, we can help in curriculum development. Like for one of the clients, we are hiring squads from IITs directly to focus on their AI initiatives. For another client, we are just setting up a GCC, right, which is a part of a larger transformation deal, which is on an AI-based platform. And the GCC that we have set up will be called an innovation center. So I think the tech centers, have a lot to receive from us, and the technology companies have a lot to give to the GCCs. We as a company have 5,000 use cases in AI across industries. And now what we are doing is we are engaging with the GCCs, right, delving into the use cases which are of relevance to them, and actually executing POCs. And in the POCs, the statewide, the enterprises involved, it's a joint POC run by the GCC in partnership with the tech company and making a difference to the company.
Payal, switching gears for a moment and now coming to you with my next question, which is around KPIs, all right, which is around new age engagement models for the GCC. What are you coming across and how effective are they in the context of delivering actionable business outcomes?
So we're definitely seeing a shift, right, from the old KPIs, which is, the cost, benefit, the efficiencies, to a more business outcome-driven KPIs, right? And the questions are being asked as to what is the AI-led transformation. And these questions are being asked within ourselves, right? We are challenging ourselves to see if we can double the amount of value we add to the client and reimagine the whole way we do a process, right? It is just not about coming in saying that we are efficient, we are adhering to the SLAs. It is much more than that, right? Are we coming in and adding value? Can the process just go beyond RPA? Can we reimagine the process and do it in an agentic way? There is, a lot of the KPIs that we are taking in are outcome-based, and HCL Tech, we are ready to put our skin in the game and say that, okay, we can cannibalize our own business, but the value has to be a business value to the client.
Yeah, sure. I do agree that I think that the traditional KPIs and OKRs were not sufficient, let's just say, to where we are in this moment, right? So when you think about KPIs, for us at NatWest, we're measuring across customer impact, simplification for the enterprise, efficiency metric, as well as we're continuously measuring our own transformation and how we're doing, right? So when you think about it as an example, you think of AI-driven resolution rates, right? Or you think of automation-driven productivity gains that may be being driven. We're also measuring, how nimbly and what's the velocity of change that we're driving, right? How many of our colleagues are actually skilled? Right. How many are skilled at advanced levels versus how many are skilled at, augmentation or enablement level. So yeah, there's a ton of metric-driven measurements that we've put in place to make sure that we are staying true to what I said, the strategic outcomes that we're after, and continuing to have end-to-end accountability for real business OKRs from India.
A trend that is perhaps taking the industry by surprise is that, GCC capitals are increasingly becoming our tier 2 cities, right? Our small cities rather than our smart cities. Your thoughts, your comments, your observations?
See, when we typically work with the GCCs who are trying to come in and we work with them on location strategy, we discuss a few things, right? Location feasibility will involve the availability of talent, your infrastructure, your cost of living, your attrition, right? But what the tier 2 offer is definitely lower attrition, access to universities and talent, and with the upcoming infrastructure that is being set up so well, it definitely, we think, is a great place. And along with that, for people who've already had the first center, tier 2 cities do offer a BCP, right? That's what we've seen, that they come in as a BCP in a big way. So while we've opened Coimbatore, like you said, was quite some time back, we have Vijayawada, Lucknow, and in Lucknow we are seeing a lot of people from our Noida offices are moving back to Lucknow, getting that culture and still stay there, and there is no attrition, and GIFT cities coming up well too.
Heartening to hear that. And by way of closing comments, and I'll pose my question to all three of you, I'll start with you, Sangeeta. What is the next strategic frontier for this sector from your vantage point? If you had to crystallize it perhaps in a single sentence or a single thought.
I think the next strategic frontier has to be where you're seeing complete product ownership and platform ownership being done from India, from the India GCCs. And of course, it's no more the GCC, it is NatWest in India, right? Or whatever, it's the enterprise in India. Yeah. I would say if we can have complete product ownership, to me, that would be, really the next strategic frontier. Or a little example I heard over the last week was, how does India inside in every product that gets built globally, right, from these GCCs?
Right. Over to you, Ruchika.
Fantastic. I can't agree more. I think that, for us, the strategic frontier is pivoting to value. I think it's really important for the industry to recognize that the pivot to value is about pivot to enterprise, and that we can win through the phenomenal strength of the talent that we have. We have to think horizontally and vertically. We have to build T-shaped enterprise leadership roles and really build our teams to drive more enterprise co-creation, as you said, and drive to those business outcomes and OKRs through this phenomenal talent base that we have. And if I may, I just want to thank everybody for being here today and for joining us at our NatWest office today. It's phenomenal to host you all.
Thank you, Ruchika, for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right, with that, Payal, Ruchika, Sangeeta, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us and for sharing such a rich range of anecdotes from your professional journeys. We wish you and your teams all the continued success.